Welcome back to the 7 steps of reloading. This is step number 3, resizing. We've previously cleaned our cases, we've annealed our cases, and now we're ready to return them to their mostly factory dimensions. To do that, we're going to be using some RCBS dies. These are small base dies for our 223s. And we're going to use RCBS case slick. We find that works very well. We go immediately into a second cleaning step after we resize so that we can knock the lubricant off and get them clean, absolutely pristine, ready to be reloaded. So let's get to the close-ups.
Resizing itself is easy once you've adjusted your die. Most manufacturers indicate that the die should touch the shell holder, then be turned a half or quartered in either direction. What's going on there is that they want you to set the die so the press resizes the case to its intended depth, setting the shoulder back to optimal position, and setting the neck diameter all at the same time. Choose a quality lubricant. Follow the manufacturer's instruction and you'll be fine. Remember, don't over-lubricate. It'll leave dents in the shoulder, possibly dents in the case body. We use RCBS case slick and we haven't had a problem yet. For decades, we used the old school Alox pad and an RCBS case lube, which is now case lube 2, and it works great. It's just easier these days to spritz cases en masse, then roll them out on the pad one at a time. Occasionally I still break out the pad if I'm reforming or necking down cases. For batch reforming, like making 300 AAC from 223 cases, we'll use sizing wax. Great stuff, that wax. Tedious by comparison, but man is it slick. Not enough lube will gall the case into the die and require that case be extracted with a drill, or maybe worse. It's definitely going to ruin the case, maybe even harm the die. All die manufacturers offer stuck case removal services for a few tens of dollars, but you'll be down waiting for your case to get unstuck and your dies sent back to you. Stuck case removers work well if you haven't crammed the case in there too badly. To avoid problems with stuck cases, slow down. Feel the resizing and how smooth it is. Don't just force things. If it fights you too much, stop and figure out what's going wrong. We find we get better uniformity if we let the press sit a moment before pulling the case out of the die. Maybe the brass takes a moment to quit moving the die. Who knows? So why is resizing even necessary? When the cartridge is fired, the brass expands to seal the chamber. And when the pressure drops off after the bullet leaves the barrel, the brass slightly relaxes, not all the way, but just enough so that it can be extracted, leaving the brass in a slightly expanded state, thus needing resized. There are 3 common types of resizing dies. Neck sizing dies, as the name would imply, only resize the neck, not the case body. They squish the neck diameter down and gently push the shoulder back so the case can easily chamber again without unnecessary work to the case body. This method has fallen out of favor recently with the advent of PRS, hunter, and 3-gun competitions. When neck sizing, those cases are not to be used in any other firearm, even if it's the same caliber. I still neck size my 22 250 loads because that particular rifle prefers it. It shoots 3/4 of a minute with full-length sizing and something less than half a minute with neck sizing. None of our other rifles care enough to make it worth doing. Full-length sizing dies, as the name implies. These dies will resize the full length of the case, not just the neck. They can be used in any action type and ensure that the reloaded ammunition will function properly. Full-length sizing dies can be broken down into 2 types, bushing and non-bushing dies. Bushing dies employ calibrated user-selectable bushings to size the neck while full-length sizing the body. Often used for competition, these dies are expensive and require a thorough understanding of both reloading and the particular firearm being used. Non-bushing dies, or standard dies, are machined at the factory to perform in the widest variety of guns, provide adequate performance levels for most users, and are very easy to set up and get running. They are the most common sizing dies in use today. Small base sizing dies. It's unusual to need small base dies. They are full-length dies used to return fired cases to approximately brand new condition, paying particular attention to the base of the case where some firearms might be picky about dimensional variations. Small base dies work the brass more than other types, but may be needed for some use cases. For instance, pistol-length AR-15s with short barrels are often tricky to get the bolt to close all the way due to the shorter gas dwell time. Cases might stick because the bolt can't force its way to 100% closed. If you absolutely need brand new case dimensions, maybe small base dies are indicated. And about inspection. Having run the lubricated cases through the die, wipe them down and check to make sure they are proper using either some sort of case gauge — Ellie Wilson makes a fine case gauge — or check it with your chamber for proper fit. See that it drops out without sticking. Case gauges make checking brass super easy. Here, we're dropping an unsized case into it for demonstration purposes. Clearly it does not fit. A correctly sized case drops right in and easily drops out unassisted. The case gauge allows us to see and feel easily whether the case is too short or too tall. It sets it up by having a median point for your case to ride in. Case gauges are machined to SAMI specs and do not represent your particular chamber. They do, however, prove you have sized correctly when using standard off-the-shelf dies. We're using small base dies because we often shoot our 223s out of short barrels. We need cases that don't hang up during chambering and function with no binding. Small base dies get us there. As mentioned before, we are working the brass more with these dies than we would with standard dies. So use small base dies only if you need that extra scrunch. Using small base dies, our fired cases' necks are resized 7.5 thousandths smaller. Our small base dies for 223 resize the neck down to SAMI specs. We really are working this brass quite a lot. One of the ways that we can check how well we've done with our resizing is to check shoulder setback. We do that with a comparator, and we're simply comparing fired cases to resized cases. Depending on your chamber, you may want to set that shoulder back a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. In our precision rifles, we set the shoulder back about 0.02 of an inch. That gives us easy loading, and we're not working the brass any harder than we have to. As you can see here, our small base dies are setting our shoulder back 3.5 thousandths, just right. We check the first few of a batch, and when we're convinced we're good to go, we simply toss the cases back into the dry tumbler for another clean to knock the lube off, running them for about 15 to 20 minutes. So, previously, we cleaned and annealed our cases. Now we've resized and cleaned them again. Remember to do visual checks as you pull them out of the tumbler. It's never a bad time to do inspections. Looks like we're ready for the next video, trimming. See you there.